The Hungarian foreign minister believes the only way to end the Russia-Ukraine war is through negotiation. But the result of any effort to come to peace through talks would depend on the next U.S. president. And he says there's one man suited for the job. Jill Neubronner sat down with Hungarian FM Péter Szijjártó in this exclusive interview, where he also talked about the EU, NATO, and his country's continuing relations with Russia.
We are a reliable ally in NATO, and we are a reliable partner of the European Union. But if you raise the question whether we are satisfied with the current shape, the current form of the European Union, no, we are not. Because Europe is losing competitiveness. Look at the figures. Europe is now no more a peaceful continent. Europe is more and more introverted. So we would like to change. We would like to reach changes. And we have a good hope for that in June, as European Union is entering into an election mode. And there will be elections held for the European Parliament. And we do hope that the right-wing conservative parties will gain strength, will gain more seats in the European Parliament, and will be able to have a bigger influence on shaping the future of Europe.
Prime Minister Orbán met Donald Trump in the US. Now, he said quite openly Donald Trump will not give a single penny to funding the war for Ukraine. Of course, the EU cannot fund the war by himself. As a good member of NATO, as a neighbor, how do you see it playing out in the next 6 to 12 months?
I think that the length of this war in our neighborhood, which is tragic to us, because I mean, living in the direct neighborhood of the war means that you are confronted with the tragic consequences on a daily basis. Imagine we have received more than 1 million refugees from Ukraine. There are still 1,600 kindergartens and schools in Hungary where Ukrainian kids and students are being enrolled. We have been carrying out the largest humanitarian operation of our history ever. So it has a huge impact on us. But I do believe that the length of this war depends basically on the outcome of the US presidential election in November. Because we understand that President Trump represents a totally different approach. And if there's a person nowadays in international politics who has the leverage, the charisma, the commitment to end this war, then it's him. It's obvious that those who are in power now and who are leading big countries are not in a position anymore to put leverage on both sides to stop. But I think President Trump would be the one. And I even want to tell you this, and you might not agree, and you say that it's a theoretical question. Definitely it's a political statement, that in case President Trump had been elected back November 2020, this war would not have broken out. That's my feeling. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but this is my feeling.
How will it end? You said if he gets elected, it will end. How?
Look, Ukraine cannot win this war for sure. I mean, Russia is a military superpower. It's obvious that they were successful enough in transforming their industry into war industry. They can feed their army. They can supply their army. So Ukraine cannot win. Look at the battlefield developments. But in the meantime, it's obvious that if the West continues to support Ukraine in a way it has been the case, I mean, militarily, weapons and so on and so forth, Russia cannot win over the entire West either. So neither of them can win. Then it means that the war will be ended by negotiations.
Then there's a question of what's next.
But I think the question is not what's next, sorry to say this, because the next are negotiations for sure. The question is different. The question is when? Now or later? And you know, the later the negotiations will be started, the more people will die. And this is a very sensitive issue for us, and I tell you why. We have a relatively big Hungarian community living in Ukraine, 150,000.
I'm aware of that, yes.
And members of this community, men, are being conscripted to the Ukrainian army.
They're fighting and they are dying on the front line as well.
So it's a very sensitive issue for us.
Yes, I understand. Now, yet, despite what you've just said, Hungary continues to maintain strong economic ties with Russia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Despite the criticism of Mr. Putin from many Western leaders, as you have pointed out yourself. Even the International Criminal Court is issuing an arrest warrant for the Russian leader. Many people want to know how Hungary continues to explain the association, their association with Russia. Again, economy first?
Well, to answer this question, I think we have to ask ourselves first how hypocritical international community is in this regard. Because you ask me as a representative of a relatively small country why we maintain economic relationship with Russia. But for some reason, this question is never being raised to the Secretary of State of the United States. How it comes that the Russian Federation was the #1 uranium supplier for United States last year. I mean, you know, United States have spent more than $1 billion in Russia to buy uranium, which is nuclear fuel. So, I mean, if they are allowed to maintain this relationship with the Russians, then why I am asked always.